Hello, trading friends, and welcome back to Forex Focus, brought to you by IG. Talking Aussie today in light of the recent bounce back for the Australian dollar, hitting 66 cents in recent trade, coming off of some weaker US dollar after the Powell testimony in the last week, as well as some strong gold prices leading to some strong Australian economic data. So many pieces here starting to finally align for the Australian dollar, and it's been a rough go of it here in 2024. Taking a look at price action in Aussie, and you can see, of course, the last 2 days, some big rallies for that Australian dollar, and they've needed it. This is a market that's gone from trading above 68 cents to start the year, and we'll take a look at even more historical data in this pair in just a second that lets you know that 68 cents ain't necessarily historically high for that Australian dollar. But anyways, they go from 68 all the way down to around 65 cents. That was right around the low. They broke 65 cents for a couple of trading sessions, and now in the last week here, going from below 65 all the way up to above 66 cents in recent trade. And a lot of people, obviously, Australian dollar longs, looking for this market to continue the bounce back, but also those on the short side maybe thinking this is just one of those rallies that we've seen several times in recent trade for this Australian dollar that ends up getting sold into. We'll see what is to come in the future price action, but let's dissect what's going on in this market, because part of it is the US dollar weakness that we've seen across the board. Euro back above 109, dollar yen back below 150, dollar yen in recent trade down to around 148, the pound up to close to 128. All these major currencies building in some strength against the US dollar. And part of this is from the Fed Chair Powell testimony, one of two that he does on an annual basis, where he came out and said that, yes, we're still looking for inflation to hit 2% target, X, Y, and Z, what he normally says, but was a little bit more confident in the fact that rates are likely to come lower at some point here in 2024. And in recent months, the first couple of months to start 2024, the data was looking so strong in the U.S. that some people start to question, will they get around to cutting here in 2024? And he, it seems, at least after this testimony, is still confident in that. And so that led to U.S. yields and dollars falling, but also some recent news in the Australian space with Aussie exports hitting 10-month highs. Their balance of trade came out here recently and looking up. And it's been, like I say, a tough go for Australia and China. That region economically has had some lean months here to start the year. And so nice to see this piece get back moving with the balance of trade number in Australia. Of course, we'll look to other higher priority data points to come from Australia throughout the month of March here, with central bank meetings and inflation readings and everything else. But the balance of trade has been a sneaky important data point for a number of economies, including Australia, China, and Japan, actually. And this stronger piece also lining up with that weaker US dollar to get Aussie moving up into the right. Another market that's moving up and to the right, and couldn't help but maybe tie these two pieces in together, is gold. Gold prices moving through those all-time highs in terms of the futures, and gold demand, as you could imagine, it has also escalated, and that's put some wind behind the sails of this Australian dollar as well. People who have traded Aussie historically might remember that gold and Australian dollar have a historically positive correlation. That hasn't been as strong in recent years. As you can imagine, gold is literally trading through all-time highs in Australian dollar. US dollar is still around 66 cents, so not all-time highs in Aussie. But it was even noted in the balance of trade that Australian gold exports grew by 18%. And remember that this is these are all these data points that we look at are backward-looking data points. So who knows what this number could look like in the coming months that are reflecting on gold's demand, obviously here climbing with the prices climbing to new highs. Of course, anything can happen. The data can be lower Australian gold exports in coming months, but interesting to see nonetheless gold prices and Australian dollar prices starting to line up, both moving higher here in recent trade. Now, where does that leave us with this major pair? Well, like I say, you go back the last decade and it's still relatively cheap. Now, this market did get down to 55 cents right after the pandemic started, but that was really short term, and then it bounced all the way back north of 75 cents for a brief period there in 2020, 2021 range, the later part of 2020 and the start of 21. And if you go back the last decade, this is a market that's been up at 90, 95 cents. Maybe not in recent years. In recent years, though, it's been 75, 80 cents, and still, even with the bounce back, trading at 66 cents. Of course, anything on the table, but if you're looking for long-term mean reversion, there's still plenty of ground to cover. If you're looking for a further crash in Aussie, there's a historical case for it. Like I say, flashing down to 55 cents, and 62, 63 cents has been relatively normal the last couple of years. But for the time being, Aussie fighting back, gold prices moving higher, and some of the Australian data pointing in the bullish direction, as well as the US dollar is giving some ground off of this Powell testimony. We'll see what continues throughout the month of March. So much data to come from the US and Australia, but nice to see Australian dollar start to move around at least a little bit. Thanks.